Chapter 21. Stop, Lou, the law enforcement team is outside. One You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Qingyun Sect, Legacy Valley. It had been half a year since Lu Yuan obtained the recipe for the marrow. Cleansing pill. In this half a year, he first spent 3 months understanding the situation. After that, he started the business of trading cultivation pills for marrow. Cleansing pills. Even though his actions did not violate the specific rules of the Qingyun sect, it was still a shady operation. Thus, Lu Yuan had always been very careful, afraid that someone would get hold of his weakness. It had been 3 months since the start of the business, and Lu Yuan had already obtained 30 marrow. Cleansing pills. However, today was the last time he would be doing this. He was planning to stop the business after today and concentrate on his cultivation. On the one hand, he had almost used up all the cultivation pills he had saved up and was temporarily unable to produce more for trade any time soon. Although his success rate in refining cultivation pills had exceeded 100% and he could steadily produce 20 cultivation pills every day, he needed to keep a large portion of the pills for his cultivation. He couldn't trade them all. Thus, Lu Yuan had very limited spare cultivation pills. Another reason why he wanted to stop the business was that he had noticed something wrong. He realized that he seemed to have underestimated the direct disciples' need for cultivation pills. In the beginning, Lu Yuan couldn't even meet direct disciples who were willing to trade with him. This caused him to be unable to hand over the goods even though he had them. However, after the news spread, the demand and supply of the market instantly reversed. Lu Yuan now received a large number of requests for trade in the secret stronghold every day. This made him instinctively feel that he couldn't go on like this. Many things might not happen when the matter was still small, but if the matter were to blow up, it would be dangerous. Lu Yuan felt that this was the case for his cultivation pills trading business. No matter how one looked at it, he was using the cultivation pill to exchange for the marrow. Cleansing pill, which meant he was taking advantage of the sect. The materials used to make the cultivation pill were provided by the sect, and the marrow. Cleansing pills he obtained were also refined by the sect. It was equivalent to him having changed the sect's resources from his left hand to his right hand, obtaining the sect's resources that he couldn't obtain at the current stage. Lu Yuan's role in this was only that of a processor and a distributor. Even though he didn't break any sect rules, such behavior of taking advantage of the loopholes was extremely dangerous no matter which world he was in. Today, just today. After today, he would stop. After all, he should also cultivate properly. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan raised his head and looked at the sky. The night was very gloomy, and the dark clouds covered the bright moonlight, making the small forest where he was particularly dark. That's strange, why was his trading partner so late today? Lu Yuan waited for 10 minutes, but the other party had not arrived. A bad feeling rose in his heart. Just as Lu Yuan was about to leave, a chubby figure walked out from the shadows. Looking at the other party, Lu Yuan's gaze turned strange. How could it be him? Name: Baidafe, Cultivation. Foundation Establishment Stage, Level 4. Although Baidafe had wrapped himself up tightly, Lu Yuan, who was very familiar with the other party, recognized him with a single glance. In fact, even without this, Lu Yuan, who had the system, could still obtain the information of the other party through the interface. Baidafe had no idea that he had been exposed. He walked out of the shadows confidently and said, "You must be the person who is trading for the marrow. Cleansing pill, right?" Lu Yuan was silent for a moment before nodding his head. Seeing that Lu Yuan admitted to it, Baidafe suddenly laughed. Then, he took out a medicine bottle and strode toward Lu Yuan. Looking at the approaching Baidafe, Lu Yuan's sharp senses detected a slight fluctuation of spiritual energy. Something's wrong, it's a trap. At the thought of this, Lu Yuan did not hesitate to use his divine ability. Divine ability, Green Flame Technique. Whoosh! A green flame rose. Not only did the sudden green flames force Baidafe to retreat, but also made him reveal a stunned expression. An outer sect disciple with the green flame who needed the marrow. Cleansing pills. Damn, could this guy be his good brother, Lu Yuan? The more he thought about it, the more Bai Dafei felt that the other party was Lu Yuan. This was because all the information matched. There were only a handful of people in the entire Qingyun sect who had successfully practiced the green flame technique. Lu Yuan had never displayed the green flame technique in front of outsiders. However, don't forget that Bai Dafei was the one who conducted the outer sect examination for him. The technique that Lu Yuan had used to refine the cultivation pill back then was the green flame technique. It could be said that Bai Dafei was the only person in the Qingyun sect who knew that Lu Yuan had mastered the green flame technique. Bai Dafei was even more aware that among all the outer disciples of the Qingyun sect, Lu Yuan was the only one who chose the green flame technique and successfully cultivated it. Damn, to think it was his good brother. Bai Dafei had never thought that his whimsical agreement to the request of the sect's little princess, Mu Chichi, to perform an entrapment would end up with him catching his good brother. Junior brother Lu, don't run. It's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Let him explain. At this moment, how could Lu Yuan, who was madly running, know so much? When he had sensed Bai Dafei's spiritual energy fluctuations, he had thought that the other party was going to take advantage of him instead, so he had naturally fled. As Lu Yuan ran, he cursed in his heart, Bai Dafei, you're really something. I thought you were someone worthy of being friends with. I didn't expect you to be so vicious. The others were all doing business according to the rules. He was the only one who wanted to take advantage of others. Chapter 22. Stop, Lu, the law enforcement team is outside. 2 You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. A foundation establishment stage cultivator bullying a qi cultivation stage cultivator. Could Bai Dafei have some face? He, Lu Yuan, was just a qi cultivation stage cultivator. How could he be a match for a foundation establishment stage cultivator like Bai Dafei? Not to mention, he hadn't cultivated many offensive divine abilities yet. He would definitely be crushed in a fight with him. Even though Lu Yuan had already run away decisively, just 10 seconds after he did so, several air-piercing sounds came from around the forest. Many foundation establishment stage cultivators rose into the sky and chased after him. When Lu Yuan, who was running on the ground, turned around and saw this, he was so frightened that his scalp turned numb. Hey, what was going on? Was Qingyun sect a decent sect or an evil sect? How could there be so many involved in such a thing as killing a fellow sect member? Lu Yuan could not be blamed for the misunderstanding. He did not think that trading the cultivation pill for the marrow. Cleansing pill was a serious matter. Naturally, he wouldn't think that the sect wanted to catch him because of it. Lu Yuan wasn't someone who liked to sit and wait for death. Even though he had spent most of the year and a half he had transmigrated here on pill refinement, whether it was the fire-wielding technique or the green flame technique, these divine abilities could not only be used in pill refinement. Since they wanted to do this, then he would like to see what they could do. Green flame multi-fireball. Lu Yuan turned around and waved his hand. In the next second, many green fireballs were fired at the cultivators who were chasing him in the air. The spiritual energy of these fireballs was only at the qi cultivation stage, but since the green flame could refine foundation establishment stage medicinal ingredients, it naturally had the ability to hurt foundation establishment stage cultivators. One of the foundation establishment stage cultivators chasing after Lu Yuan was not careful and was hit by the green flame fireball. He immediately fell from the sky. When the leader, Mu Chichi, saw this, she was surprised and excited. Senior brothers, be careful. Today, you must capture him alive. I want to see who this guy who is hiding in the shadows is. Yes. The remaining 2 foundation establishment stage disciples and Bai Dafei, who rushed over late, immediately responded. As for the foundation establishment stage disciple who was sent flying by Lu Yuan, he was not in any life-threatening danger. He was only in a slightly sorry state. Very quickly, he caught up to Lu Yuan again. In total, 5 Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators were here to capture Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan looked at the 5 figures flying rapidly in the sky and almost couldn't help but curse. F***CKU. He was just a Qi Cultivation Stage cultivator. Did they have to send out 5 Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators to deal with him? Facing such a desperate situation, Lu Yuan went all out. In any case, there was no way he could escape this situation. 5 flying Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators were trying to catch him. Where could he run to? Since they wanted to play dirty, then he vowed to at least drag someone down with him today. Lu Yuan suddenly stopped and swallowed 2 marrow. Cleansing pills. Although the effect of the marrow. Cleansing pill was to increase the absorption speed of spiritual energy, it also contained a lot of spiritual energy. It could be used as a temporary pill to replenish spiritual energy. Feeling the boundless spiritual energy in his body, Lu Yuan slammed both his hands on the ground. Boom! Violent green flames spread wildly from his hands and eventually spread to the surrounding weeds and trees. In the next second, the trees engulfed in green flames actually moved. Wood nurtured fire. The green flame contained wood-based spiritual energy, to begin with. As such, when it encountered trees and vegetation, it immediately produced a wonderful chemical reaction. Green flame, chaotic forest. The vines that were covered in green flames instantly flew toward Muchichi and the others. This sudden scene shocked them. What was with this brat? How could he control the green flame to such an extent? One must know that Lu Yuan's green flame chaotic forest not only required a high level of mastery of the green flame technique, but also a high level of control over his spiritual energy. Otherwise, he would be lucky to not hurt himself when controlling so many green flame vines at the same time, let alone the enemy. If it wasn't for the fact that they could sense that Lu Yuan was only at the Qi cultivation stage, they might even suspect that this guy was pretending to be weak. It was rare for an outer sect Qi cultivation stage disciple to have such strength. What they didn't know was that although Lu Yuan had only been refining pills for the past year, pill refinement was also a technical job. As a result, his transfer and control of spiritual energy had reached a terrifying level. It was not a problem for Lu Yuan to control a few plants and vines that were covered in green flames. Seeing a large number of green flame vines flying over, Muchichi and the others all used their divine abilities. Qingyun, Giant Sword Technique. Muchichi took the lead and pointed her sword. In the next second, the sword pellet at her waist flew out and turned into a huge sword. It went straight for Lu Yuan's green flame vines. The other Foundation Establishment Stage disciples also activated their defensive divine abilities. Boom! A violent explosion and fire immediately engulfed the forest. When the flames dissipated, they realized that Lu Yuan had run far away. Muchichi looked at Lu Yuan's back view and frowned slightly. Strange, when did Qingyun sect have such a talented outer sect disciple? She had never heard of the other party before. With his mastery of the green flame technique, he shouldn't be unknown in the sect. However, it didn't matter. As long as he was captured, all the problems would be solved. At the thought of this, Muchichi immediately shouted, "Go after him." Although Lu Yuan's green flame chaotic forest had power akin to a Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator, it was only akin to. Not to mention that among the 5 pursuers, there were also senior Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators like Muchichi and Baidafe. However, Lu Yuan was not the kind of person who would give up easily, especially to this group of people who were playing dirty. Every country has its laws, and every action has its own rules. These few fellows were simply too unruly. Baidafe looked at Lu Yuan, who had not given up on resisting, and felt that things should not continue like this. Ultimately, he did not think that Lu Yuan would be in any danger if he was captured. At most, the sect leader would teach him a harsh lesson. On the contrary, if this continued and any of the senior brothers didn't hold back, Lu Yuan would really be in danger. Thinking of this, Bai Dafei immediately shouted, "Junior brother Lu, stop. There are disciples from the law enforcement team outside. You can't run." Lu Yuan, who was about to reach the Pharmacist Valley, stopped in his tracks when he heard this. Because just as Bai Dafei finished shouting, a few more figures appeared in the sky in front of Lu Yuan. Without exception, all of these people were at the Foundation establishment stage. An encirclement formed by the Foundation establishment stage cultivators of the Qingyun sect was formed. Lu Yuan looked at the law enforcement team members in the sky. He was stunned, but he gradually calmed down. Foundation establishment stage, law enforcement team. So they were here to catch him because of the exchange for the marrow. Cleansing pill, not to back. Stab him. At the thought of this, Lu Yuan spread out his arms and stood still, waiting for Bai Dafei and the rest to approach him. He looked as if he had given up on resisting. Soon, Mu Qiqi took the lead as the five descended from the sky and arrived in front of Lu Yuan. Looking at this interesting fellow in front of her, Mu Qiqi couldn't help but ask, "Hey, which valley are you from?" Lu Yuan looked at her and took off his mask, revealing his handsome appearance. "I am Lu Yuan, an outer sect disciple of the Pharmacist Valley, greeting this senior sister." He's quite good. Looking. Looking at Lu Yuan's outstanding appearance, Mu Qiqi suddenly thought. However, she did not forget her purpose. She waved her hand in a majestic manner. "Take him down." A few senior brothers from the law enforcement team immediately stepped forward and subdued Lu Yuan. During this process, Lu Yuan did not put up any resistance. However, when he turned to look at Bai Dafei, his eyes were filled with a strange resentment. So was this how senior brother Bai treated his brother? Entrapment. In response, Bai Dafei immediately shot him a helpless look. Noel.n misunderstanding, it was all a misunderstanding. He didn't expect that the person everyone wanted to catch was Lu Yuan. He vowed that this junior brother was his one true love. He, Bai Dafei, was a righteous man who would never betray his brothers. The high-spirited Mu Qiqi didn't notice the exchange of glances between the two. At this moment, she was completely immersed in the joy of having just accomplished something big. "Take him away, we're going to see the sect leader." At this moment, Mu Qiqi felt as if she had transformed into the young sect leader of the Qingyun sect. How awe-inspiring. Chapter 23. Punishment. Reward. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qingyun sect, Main Peak Hall. Under the escort of a few of the law enforcement hall's disciples, Lu Yuan quickly entered the main hall. This was the first time Lu Yuan had come to the main peaks hall. The layout of the entire hall was not complicated. Other than some necessary tables and chairs, it was very empty. The most eye-catching thing in the entire hall was the jade statue in the depths of the hall. This 10-meter tall statue was the founder of the Qingyun sect, exalted celestial Qingyun. Even though he had long ascended, the disciples of the sect still maintained their respect for the old man and treated him as their goal, working hard in their cultivation. At this moment, the main hall was already filled with people. Mu Chen, the leader of the Qingyun sect, 6 core formation stage elders, and a group of direct disciples were all here. Looking at this situation, people who didn't know better would think that a devil had attacked the Qingyun sect. But in fact, the reason they were gathered here today was because of an outer sect disciple. "Dad, I've brought him." Mu Qiqi shouted happily as soon as she entered the hall. Mu Chen felt a little embarrassed when he heard this. He wanted to tell his dear daughter that even though the entire Qingyun sect knew that she was his daughter, in public, she should at least call him the sect leader. However, these were all trivial matters. After Mu Chen cleared his throat, he curiously looked behind Mu Qiqi. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was being held down by a few direct disciples, Mu Chen walked forward. You're the outer sect disciple who's been collecting the marrow. Cleansing pills on a grand scale. Lu Yuan raised his head and saw Mu Chen walking towards him. Since things had come to this, Lu Yuan did not have any thoughts of continuing to struggle. Reporting to the sect leader, "It is indeed me." Although he had already decided to admit his mistake, Lu Yuan was still unwilling to accept it. "Sect leader, I have a question I would like to ask that I hope you can answer. I don't know which rule of the sect I have violated by trading for the marrow. Cleansing pill, to the point the sect leader and all the senior brothers and senior sisters have been involved. The sect doesn't seem to prohibit disciples from trading with each other." Lu Yuan's question stumped everyone present. To be honest, what he did was not that serious. After all, the exchange of the cultivation pill for the marrow. Cleansing pill was a mutually willing transaction. He didn't betray the sect's interests, nor did he harm his fellow sect members. No matter what, it shouldn't be so serious that the sect leader and the elders were questioning him in person now. In short, although Lu Yuan was wrong, it wasn't a huge mistake. It was not worthy of such a huge scene. This was also why Lu Yuan could not understand his situation. Why were they spending so much effort to catch him? However, Lu Yuan had clearly forgotten one thing. In the world of celestial cultivation, many things were useless to reason with. The truth was only within the range of the flying sword, and dignity was only based on powerful cultivation. Even if one was in reason, the final power of interpretation did not lie in the hands of a small outer sect disciple like Lu Yuan. Mu Chen looked at Lu Yuan, who was still a little unconvinced, and said indifferently, "Lu Yuan, I'm not here to discuss right and wrong with you today. I'm only here to ask if you're the one who did this." Lu Yuan's mouth was slightly agape, but in the end, he still nodded dejectedly. He confirmed that he was indeed the one who had been purchasing the marrow. Cleansing pill in a high-profile manner. After confirming the main culprit, Mu Chen asked the question he was most concerned about, "Lu Yuan, never mind anything else. Let me ask you, how did you get so many cultivation pills to trade? You're just a cheap cultivation stage cultivator. Logically speaking, you shouldn't be able to take out so many cultivation pills." Whether there was any other faction behind Lu Yuan was the core problem of this matter. At this moment, Lu Yuan also appeared to be very carefree and chose to reveal everything. Reporting to the sect leader, "These cultivation pills were all refined by myself alone." "You can make so many cultivation pills by yourself?" Looking at the shocked Mu Chen, Lu Yuan calmly said, "Reporting to the sect leader, I have indeed refined all the cultivation pills by myself. If the sect leader doesn't believe me, I can swear on my Tao heart, or I can show it to everyone on the spot." At this point, everyone believed in Lu Yuan. After all this, to think he was a pill-refining genius. An outer sect disciple who was able to produce so many cultivation pills in such a short time clearly had an extremely high talent in pill refinement. One must know that of the cultivation pills that Lu Yuan refined, a portion of them had to be handed over to the sect, a portion was reserved for his own cultivation, and the rest was used for trading. Yet, just the remaining portion was already enough to be used to exchange for a large number of marrow. Cleansing pills. One could see Lu Yuan's success rate in refining pills. After knowing this, Mu Chen put away his initial idea of using Lu Yuan as a warning to others. It was obvious that although this disciple was a little out of line, his talent in pill refinement was definitely not low. The Qinyan sect highly valued professional talents like pharmacists. A good pharmacist was equivalent to 10 other cultivators in the same stage. When he thought of this, Mu Chen's expression visibly softened. Bai Dafei, who was good at reading people's expressions, saw this and knew that it was time for him to make his appearance. "Good brother, don't worry, he was coming to the rescue. Sect leader, I can guarantee with my honor that junior brother Lu's cultivation pills were refined by himself. I was in charge of junior brother Lu's pharmacist valley entrance examination. His talent in pill refinement is 1 in a million. I hope that the sect leader can give junior brother Lu a lenient punishment on account of this being his first offense and the circumstances are not serious. Looking at Bai Dafei, who had stood up for him, Lu Yuan was so touched that he was about to cry. As expected of his good brother. To actually speak up for him at this time, he had wrongly blamed him. Senior brother Bai was indeed his good brother. At this moment, Bai Dafei seemed to have sensed something and turned to give Lu Yuan a reassuring look. It was as if he was saying, "Don't worry, brother. I, Bai Dafei, am a righteous man. I will not let you suffer today." Just as Mu Chen was thinking about how to deal with Lu Yuan, Elder Han, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke, "Sect leader Mu, can you let me say a few words?" "Elder Han, please speak." Han Yuanshan walked forward and looked at Lu Yuan, who was half-kneeling on the ground. He smiled and shook his head, "Sect leader Mu, the current situation is already very clear. This matter was all done by Lu Yuan himself and no one else was involved behind the scenes. Since he said that he can refine a large number of cultivation pills in such a short time, why not punish him by making him stay in the confinement room in the back mountain for the next 5 years? After all, this can be considered as making the best use of everything, right?" Upon hearing this punishment, Lu Yuan's eyes lit up. Was there such a good thing? Lu Yuan, who thought that he would be severely punished, had never expected that things would develop in such a way. To think the result of this punishment was to give him a good chance to work on his skill proficiency. What kind of punishment was this? This was simply a reward. Mu Chen's love for talent had been triggered, so he simply followed Han Yuanshan's words. "Then we'll do as Elder Han says. Lu Yuan, since you have only violated the rules and the circumstances are not serious, I will punish you to refine pills in seclusion in the back mountains confinement room for 5 years. Are you willing?" He was willing, very willing. Whoever was unwilling was a fool. "Thank you for your forgiveness, sect leader. I am willing to accept the punishment." Just like that, the evil atmosphere that was about to be set off in the Qinyan sect was snuffed out in the cradle. The next day, many disciples of the Qinyan sect learned about this. The outer sect disciples were amazed that there was such a person who could take out so many cultivation pills. The direct disciples regretted that an excellent channel to exchange for the cultivation pill was gone. However, 2 people reacted differently from most people after hearing the news. Chen Yan, who had just returned from the mortal world, heard the news about Lu Yuan, an outer sect disciple of the Pharmacist Valley. After finding out that Lu Yuan was the guy who was his fiancée's lover, Chen Yan's face immediately turned gloomy. Good, he had finally caught the other party. He was from the Pharmacist Valley, huh? Chen Yan didn't believe that the other party could stay there forever. The other person with the same gloomy face was Meng Ruyan, who had just returned to the sect. She had never expected that her little lover would be gone just like that after she had left the mountain on an expedition for 2 years. 5 years, 5 years. How did they plan on letting her live through these 5 years? What about her cultivation? Just when everyone thought that Lu Yuan would regret his actions, Lu Yuan was slapping his thigh in regret in one of the pill refinement rooms in the Pharmacist Valley. Damn it, if I knew this would happen, I would have made the whole matter bigger. I've only been punished to enter secluded cultivation for 5 years. Shouldn't it be at least 10 years? What a loss, what a huge loss. Chapter 24. 5 years of happiness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. To an ordinary person, 5 years of confinement was indeed a very serious punishment. After all, even for cultivators, 5 years was not a short time. How many 5 years could a person have? However, this punishment was exactly what Lu Yuan wanted. Previously, he had been worried about how he could get rid of the demoness Meng Ruyan so that he could safely cultivate to the foundation establishment stage. All his planning was nothing compared to heaven's plans. Look, hadn't the opportunity come by itself? Now, the sect leader had personally requested for him to be confined. No matter how dissatisfied the demoness Meng Rian was, she shouldn't be able to go against the sect leader's decision, right? At this moment, Lu Yuan did not regret what he had done. Instead, he regretted that he had not done enough. If he could be confined for 50 years, Lu Yuan would definitely burst out laughing. Moreover, although his 5 years of confinement was a punishment on the surface, it was actually a reward in disguise. Whether it was sect leader Mu Chen or elder Han Yuanshan of the Pharmacist Valley, it was obvious that both of them now remembered Lu Yuan. Even though elder Han had come into contact with Lu Yuan before, it was more of an impulse at that time, and it didn't take long for him to forget about it. However, this incident made elder Han remember Lu Yuan, the pill-refining genius. An outer sect disciple who had the ability to refine so many cultivation pills while being someone who had just started learning the art of pill refinement was obviously a good seedling in pill refinement and must be protected well. Never mind other things, but in terms of the cultivation and protection of talents, the Qingyun sect was still very good. In addition, Lu Yuan's crime was not a problem of principle. Therefore, his punishment this time was more of a warning. It was a warning to Lu Yuan to not create trouble in the future and cultivate properly. The sect would not mistreat him in the future. However, neither Elder Han nor Mu Chen had expected that not only did the punishment fail to make Lu Yuan turn over a new leaf, it even opened the door to a whole new world for him. In the confinement room at the back mountain, Lu Yuan wasn't doing his usual pill-refining tasks. Instead, he was carefully reading a book called Rules of Qingyun Sect. Secretly learning the sect's cultivation techniques and divine abilities without permission. The lightest punishment is to have your cultivation crippled. The heaviest punishment is to be executed in public. No, this punishment is too heavy. It doesn't meet the requirements. Those who go against the wishes of fellow sect members and force them to become partners will be grounded for 10 years at best and executed in public at worst. This won't do either. If the severity isn't controlled well, I might ultimately die. Let's change to another one. In the end, after Lu Yuan finished reading the rules of Qingyun sect, he finally found a rule that he could violate among the newly added rules. Those who privately buy and sell the resources of the sect to their fellow sect members will be punished with a minimum penalty of having all their illegal gains confiscated and a fine. If it's serious, on top of the previous punishment, they will be confined for more than 10 years. This one. This was a good sect rule. It was obvious that this rule had been added by sect leader Mu Chen after the marrow cleansing pill incident. After all, before this, there had never been such a situation where inner sect disciples sold their pills to fellow sect members. There were only cases of inner sect disciples betraying the interests of the sect and selling the sect's resources to outsiders. This was directly dealt with as betrayal. As for the price of betraying the sect, crippling one's cultivation was already showing mercy. Executing one in public was the normal punishment. At this moment, Lu Yuan was obviously eyeing the rule of buying and reselling the sect's resources. Dovko in all the celestial cultivation novels, the confinement room in the back mountain was usually the safest place. When no one attacked the mountain, few people would go to the back mountain, so it was not easy to offend others. When someone attacked the mountain, those at the back of the mountain could stay far away from the main battlefield and find an opportunity to escape. No matter how one looked at it, this was a place where one could both attack and defend. It was the best place for the steady development style cultivators to cultivate. Similar to confinement in most novels, Lu Yuan's so-called confinement was actually just a mandatory cultivation mission. Those who were confined could still exchange for cultivation techniques and divine abilities with the sect as usual to maintain their daily cultivation. It could be said that other than the lack of freedom, there was not much difference between those who were confined and ordinary disciples. However, being confined was not without its disadvantages. This disadvantage was that the cultivation resources of those who were confined were not as abundant as that of ordinary disciples. After all, ordinary disciples could earn contribution points or spiritual stones by completing various tasks, then exchange them for the corresponding cultivation resources with the sect. Those who were confined would no longer have such an opportunity. However, this was not a problem for Lu Yuan. With his mastery over pill refinement, he did not lack cultivation resources. The only thing he needed was a stable cultivation environment and time to work hard. To others, confinement was a punishment, but to him, it was the best reward. When he thought of this, Lu Yuan could not wait to break the sect rules again. However, considering that he already had 5 years of vacation, Lu Yuan felt that it was better for him to restrain himself a little. Otherwise, if he were to be driven down the mountain in the end, it would be throwing the helve after the hatchet. Just as Lu Yuan was planning his happy life for the next 5 years, a hearty voice came from outside the confinement room. "Junior brother Lu, I'm here to see you." Hearing the commotion outside, Lu Yuan hurriedly kept the rules of Qinyan's sect and walked out. He saw Bai Dafei carrying a stack of food and smiling as he stood in front of the room where he was confined. Looking at Bai Dafei, Lu Yuan teased, "Senior brother Bai, you caused me a lot of trouble yesterday." Upon hearing Lu Yuan's words, Bai Dafei raised the basket of delicacies in his hand and the wine in his other hand. He smiled and said, "Junior brother Lu, do you even hear yourself? Aren't I here to apologize?" Upon seeing this, Lu Yuan laughed as well. All right. I know that you didn't mean it. This place is simple and crude. I hope that you won't mind it later." "What are you saying, junior brother? I'm not the kind of person who likes enjoyment. Come on, let's have a good drink today." As he spoke, Bai Dafei put his arm around Lu Yuan's shoulder and walked into the confinement room. As soon as he entered, Bai Dafei saw that there was only one pill furnace and one stone bed in the confinement room. "Junior brother Lu, it seems like you're going to have to suffer for the next 5 years. This environment is really not something that a human can survive in," he said with a sigh. "It's fine. I'm already very satisfied with this treatment as someone who made a mistake. By the way, I still have to thank you, senior brother, for speaking up for me yesterday." "Junior brother Lu, what are you saying? I, Bai Dafei, am a righteous man. I would never do anything to harm you. To be honest, even if I didn't say those words yesterday, the sect leader wouldn't have done anything to you. After all, your talent in pill refinement is obvious to all in the sect. The sect leader has his own considerations." As he spoke, Bai Dafei took out a brand new storage bag. "Junior brother, these are the divine abilities that I've exchanged for according to your request. In addition, there are also medicinal ingredients you need for your pill refinement. Elder Han has instructed me to come every half a year to verify your pill refinement progress. We can't let you give up on yourself. To be honest, I think that both sect leader Mu and Elder Han think highly of you. On the surface, they're putting you in confinement, but isn't this also another kind of protection? Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to bring these divine abilities and cultivation techniques in so easily. Doesn't this show how much the sect leader and Elder Han value you, junior brother? Junior brother, don't let down the sect leader and Elder Han's efforts." Looking at Bai Dafei, who had come to be the peacemaker, Lu Yuan nodded and said, "Senior brother, don't worry. I understand." "It's good that you understand, junior brother Lu. Oh right, are you preparing to cultivate all 5 spiritual roots at the same time? Why do you want me to help you get so many basic divine abilities of the 5 spiritual roots?" As he spoke, Bai Dafei took out 4 cultivation techniques from his storage bag. These 4 cultivation techniques were metal manipulation, wood manipulation, water manipulation, and earth manipulation. Lu Yuan's eyes lit up as he looked at the 4 divine ability books. As he put them away, he said, "Regarding the situation of my spiritual roots, senior brother, you should already have some understanding. I haven't decided which type of spiritual root I want to cultivate yet, so I've decided to try them all out. I'll decide later." Then junior brother, you'd better make a decision soon. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's drink. Today, we'll drink to our heart's content. Not long after, cheerful sounds rang out in the confinement room. After drinking to their heart's content for an entire afternoon, Lu Yuan personally sent by Dafei off. When he returned to his confinement room, Lu Yuan looked at the simple and crude room and the corners of his mouth curled up. 5 years of happiness. Starting now. Chapter 25. Mu Chi-Chi, who was also punished to confinement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cultivating the 5 elemental manipulation divine abilities was not Lu Yuan's impulse. Instead, it was the cultivation direction that he had long planned out. In his first 5-year plan, he had written down his general aim of breaking through to the foundation establishment stage after all 5 spiritual roots are perfected. Under this general aim, Lu Yuan had many sub-projects. 1. Every spiritual root had to have at least one corresponding divine ability. 2. Every skill had to be advanced at least once. The reason why he had set up these 2 sub-projects was that he was worried that in the future, he would become an amateur with cultivation but no corresponding combat power. Although he didn't like to fight, he still needed to have the necessary strength. Not having a sword in hand and not using one were 2 different things. Even though he had always held on to the belief that I won't cause trouble and am afraid of trouble, and thus tried his best to avoid conflict with outsiders to buy time for his secretive development, there were bound to be some things that were beyond one's control. For example, Demoness Meng Rian's threats, or the large-scale arrest of the marrow-cleansing pill incident. These were all situations that Lu Yuan had not considered before. If he had known that such a situation would happen, he would have prepared countless tricks in advance to prevent things from getting out of his control. After all that had happened, the stable Lu Yuan, who was good at summarizing, decisively summarized the mistakes he had made in these incidents and the areas that could be improved. After reflecting on his painful experience, Lu Yuan decided to start enriching his trump cards. Learning defensive methods was not enough. He had to start learning some offensive divine abilities too. Even though he already had the green flame technique, a heavenly flame divine ability, and thus had decent fighting power among cultivators of the same stage, this could only be considered as one of his trump cards, and it was something that had already been exposed. Could a trump card that was exposed still be called a trump card? Therefore, the current Lu Yuan urgently wanted to master some other trump cards. Among them, the ones that he wanted to master the most were the other special divine abilities similar to the green flame technique. Without exception, all of these special divine abilities had various magical abilities that could help him display strength that far exceeded his cultivation, given his lacking cultivation. It was just that these special divine abilities were generally very difficult to cultivate. Even if the cultivation conditions were met, the success of the cultivation depended on luck. However, this was not a problem for Lu Yuan. Luck, you say? His luck had always been good. He would put it this way. Other than being handsome, eloquent, highly talented in cultivation, and having a big tool, Lu Yuan was also a little luckier than others. Others' cultivation depended on luck, but he cultivated steadily, never depending on luck. Luck was the excuse of the weak and the humble words of the strong. He, the steady Lu Yuan, didn't need all these fancy things. Because he was the carrier of luck himself. Lu Yuan was confident that he could cultivate a few more special divine abilities. However, he didn't have enough sect contribution points to exchange for them. Therefore, he could only settle for the second best and start cultivating the elementary 5 elements manipulation techniques. In fact, there was another important reason why Lu Yuan was learning these elementary divine abilities. It was because he realized that although his luck talent, destined lucky star, played an important role in why he could master the green flame technique so easily, his high-level fire manipulation also played a key role in this. Even though elementary skills didn't seem to have any significant effects at the moment, since they could be called elementary, many powerful divine abilities were naturally developed further from the prototype of these elementary skills. So as long as one had a good foundation, it would only take half the effort to practice the same type of skill. Lu Yuan was prepared to practice these elementary divine abilities to a certain level before starting to learn other special divine abilities. Since he had so many new divine abilities to learn in a short time, Lu Yuan began to plan his specific schedule for the next 5 years. The Steady Lu Yuan Cultivation Plan 1.0, from 6 a.m. to noon, he would conduct a 6-hour pill refining session. During this process, he would also increase the proficiency of his fire-wielding technique, exquisite item manipulation, and metaphysical pill refinement technique. From 12 to 1 in the afternoon, he would have an hour of relaxation, balancing work and rest. From 1 to 6 in the afternoon, he would have 5 hours of learning various divine abilities, including but not limited to the 5 elemental manipulation techniques. From 6 to 7 in the evening, he would relax for an hour and strike a balance between work and rest. From 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. the next day, he would do elementary cultivation and increase his cultivation. Looking at the cultivation plan that he had formulated, Lu Yuan felt that his future life had become incomparably fulfilling. If everything went smoothly, he should be able to successfully break through to the foundation establishment stage during his 5 years of confinement. Moreover, his breakthrough would be the kind where all 5 of his spiritual roots were well balanced. As he thought of this, Lu Yuan felt that his future was filled with hope. To become stronger, he had to start with a self-disciplined life. 4 years later, the back mountain was a place where punished disciples who made mistakes were sent to. Not only were there few disciples who came here in the past, but not many came here for punishment as well. It could even be said that anyone who could be punished to confinement at the back mountain was favored by Qingyun's sect or had a deep background within the sect. After all, the so-called confinement was actually a kind of forced cultivation. On the surface, it was a punishment, but in reality, it was to let the disciples who made mistakes more restful, not to cause trouble, and to cultivate properly. It was more a formality than actual punishment. If the sect didn't take a fancy to one or one didn't have a strong background, why would the sect spend so much effort on one? Today, a person who should never have come to the back mountain of Qingyun's sect arrived. Senior Sister Mu, why are you here? The Qingyun sect disciple who was guarding the back mountain was shocked as he watched Mu Chichi being brought over by a few disciples of the law enforcement hall. Wasn't Senior Sister Mu the daughter of the sect leader? With such status, she could do whatever she wanted in the sect. Why did it look like she was about to be confined? Who would be so bold as to punish the princess of the Qingyun sect? They must have no emotional intelligence. Weren't they afraid that the sect leader would make life difficult for them? However, what the disciples of the law enforcement hall said next made the disciple who was guarding the back mountain reveal a strange expression. Under the orders of the sect leader, we have personally escorted Senior Sister Mu here for 3 years of secluded cultivation. Without the permission of the sect leader, Senior Sister Mu cannot leave the back mountain even half a step. Good Lord, so it was her biological father who gave the order. What kind of outrageous thing did Senior Sister Mu do to make the sect leader give such an order? At this moment, Mu Chichi was clearly not happy with this punishment. What is father doing? What does he mean by saying I have no manners? It was that guy from Yuchan Mountain who didn't watch his mouth first, she complained. Does he even see what kind of trash he is? How dare he say that we are a match made in heaven? To think he even wants to ask my father for my hand in marriage. He's just a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. What status do I have? What status does he have? I'm not going to spoil him. Didn't I just find an opportunity to beat him up? Father already scolded me in public, but to think he still wants to punish me to confinement. This is too much, he's really too much. I've decided. For my entire lifetime, I'll forget it, I won't be nice to him for the next 10 years. Upon hearing Mu Chichi's grumbles, the disciple guarding the back mountain finally understood what had happened. The most important event of the Qingyun sect was the 5-sect conference. It was said that the reason was that the three demonic sects in the West were becoming increasingly rampant, and had begun to extend their hands into the territories of the five sections. To deal with the possible situations, the five sects decided to gather and discuss a strategy. Yuchan sect was one of the five righteous sections. It was just that they were here to discuss serious business. Was it really good for Senior Sister Mu to have beat them up in front of so many guests? Mu Chichi didn't care if what she did was good or not. She only knew that she was very unhappy right now. Was she not allowed to make a move when others took liberties with her? Just because the other party was one of the five righteous sects, just because the sect wanted to cooperate with the other party, they could make her suffer, huh? Either way, she couldn't stand such a grievance. Admit her fault. Mu Chichi didn't feel that it was wrong to hit someone. Rather, she felt that she had been too gentle. In fact, if not for the other's quick arrival, she might have even destroyed the other party's future tool of crime by then. It had to be said that in terms of cultivation talent, Mu Chichi was truly outstanding. At the age of 26, she had already reached level 7 of the foundation establishment stage. Everyone said that Mu Chichi was the most likely to reach the core formation stage before the age of 30. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was a proud daughter of the heavens. Hey you, tell me about the other places in the back mountain. I'll pick a place to stay. The disciple guarding the back of the mountain hurried forward. Just as he was about to speak, Mu Chichi suddenly changed her mind. Oh right, I suddenly remembered that the outer sect disciple I caught 4 years ago seems to be locked up here too. Where is he now? Take me there to take a look. Upon hearing this, the expression of the back mountain disciple abruptly changed. Senior sister. Let's not go there. Why? The disciple's face instantly turned pale. Then, he seemed to recall something terrifying. After hesitating for a moment, he lowered his voice and said, Senior sister. Because there are ghosts there. Ghosts. It would have been better if the disciple didn't say that because Mu Chichi became even more excited after hearing this. She liked ghosts. They seemed very interesting. Let's go, let's go. I'd like to see what kind of ghosts are in this back mountain. Chapter 26. The Exposed Stable Lu Yuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since Mu Chichi had already said so, the back mountain disciple could not continue to stop her. Stop her? What could he do to stop her? He didn't have a sect leader as a father. Moreover, if Senior Sister Mu were to get angry and beat him up later, he wouldn't even have a place to complain to. This was Mu Chichi, the princess of the Qingyun sect, who could do whatever she wanted. Left with no choice, the back mountain disciple unwillingly brought the few of them towards the mountain peak where Lu Yuan was. The back mountain of Qingyun sect wasn't really just one mountain, but a whole range of mountains. After flying for some distance, the group stopped in front of a mountain peak in the middle of the back mountain range. In the sky, Mu Chichi looked at the ordinary-looking mountain peak and asked in confusion, "This is the place you said had ghosts. Why don't I see anything strange?" The back mountain disciple looked at the mountain peak below and said with a lingering fear, "Senior sister, before junior brother Lu Yuan arrived, this mountain peak was still normal. However, 2 years after he came, many strange things appeared on this mountain peak. It's very difficult for me to use words to describe it. Senior sister, you'll know when you go down and take a look. By the way, senior sister, remember not to fly there directly. If you want to go, it's best." Without waiting for the disciple to finish speaking, Mu Chichi impatiently flew toward the mountain peak. What did he mean by "don't fly over"? This was the back mountain of the Qingyun sect. Did he understand the value of the words, Qingyun sect? As the daughter of the sect leader, there weren't many places in Qingyun sect that she couldn't go to. Just as Mu Chichi was about to reach the mountain peak, a few rocks on the top of the mountain suddenly moved. An unfamiliar cultivator has been detected approaching. Cultivation. Foundation Establishment Stage. Activate Level 2 Alert Status. Boom. Along with 4 loud sounds, 4 giant rocks on the mountaintop actually turned around and aimed at Muchichi. Upon seeing this, Muchichi suddenly felt a sense of danger. Something was wrong. There was something very wrong with these 4 stones. Muchichi took a closer look. Those things on the top of the mountain weren't rocks but 4 puppets disguised as stones. The puppets were already in an activated state. Warning, warning. This is the restricted area of the Qingyun sect's back mountain. Visitors, please hand over an invitation or match the passcode. Otherwise, please leave as soon as possible. Passcode. Hearing the emotionless voice of the puppet, Muchichi was instantly interested. With this in mind, Muchichi approached the mountain peak and shouted, "Passcode. I'm the best in the world." When the back mountain disciples saw how confident Muchichi was, they thought that she really knew what the passcode was and were all very shocked. But how would Muchichi know about the passcode? She was just shouting something for fun. As expected, not long after Muchichi finished her words, the entire valley instantly became lively. Passcode error, passcode error. The enemy is approaching the danger zone. Level 1 alert status activated. Warning, warning, the enemy has entered the danger zone. Defense mode activated. The 4 puppets aimed in Muchichi's direction, and their round bodies began to split. Then, 4 huge gun barrels appeared in the split stomach of the rocks. Boom. 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 With 4 loud bangs, 4 huge green fireballs were blasted toward Muchichi. When Muchichi saw this, she suddenly recalled that when she had captured Lu Yuan back then, he had also used green flame fireballs. Muchichi, who was a battle maniac, was instantly excited. He was the one who started it. Good. Muchichi raised her hand and pointed forward, and the sword pellet at her waist instantly flew out. Qingyun, Giant Sword Technique. 4 giant swords cut through the sky and flew toward the green flame fireballs. Boom. 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 After the huge sword and the fireball collided, a shocking explosion was heard. Terrifying green flames immediately spread in the sky. Seeing that Muchichi wasn't that easy to deal with, the 4 puppets launched another attack. Previously, they had been in single-shot mode, but now they instantly switched to continuous mode. Boom. 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 Dense green flame fireballs started to fly toward Muchichi. Each of these fireballs had the power of a level 1 foundation establishment stage cultivator who went all out. Not to mention that the green flame was a heavenly flame, so the fireballs were not so easy to defend against. Thus, the dense rain of green flame fireballs was enough to threaten cultivators below level 2 of the foundation establishment stage. Unfortunately, they were now facing Muchichi, who was at level 7 of the foundation establishment stage. Perhaps Muchichi found it interesting, but she wasn't in a hurry to destroy the puppets. Instead, she flicked her finger and had the 4 giant swords return to her side. They formed a unique defensive barrier while flying at high speed. Boom. 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 A large number of green fireballs immediately bombarded Muchichi's giant sword barrier, causing incessant explosion sounds. What Muchichi didn't notice was that while the 4 puppets were frantically attacking her, a puppet twice the size of a normal puppet had silently appeared on the ground of the mountaintop. If it hadn't appeared on its own, perhaps even if the enemy got close, it would be difficult for outsiders to discover its existence. Not only was this puppet much larger than the other puppets, but its structure was also much more complicated. Moreover, its appearance was different from the other round. Shaped puppets. It had the appearance of a living creature, very similar to an earthworm or lizard. After the lizard puppet appeared, it opened its mouth and aimed at Muchichi, who was above its head. In an instant, Muchichi felt an even greater green flame power brewing on the ground. She lowered her head and saw the 2-meter-long earthworm puppet. What was this? As she looked at the 2-meter-long earthworm puppet, Mu Chichi took out an item from her storage bag, a low-grade magic item called the Black Iron Bell. The Black Iron Bell immediately enlarged after it appeared and completely enveloped Mu Chichi. The earthworm puppet attacked almost at the same time that Mu Chichi assumed a defensive stance. A green flame fireball that was much larger than an ordinary puppet was instantly shot out. Boom! The fireball landed on Mu Chichi's Black Iron Bell and exploded. The power of this fireball was almost equivalent to the full power of a level 3 foundation establishment stage cultivator. Fortunately, Mu Chichi's cultivation was quite profound. Otherwise, this green flame fireball would have been enough to make her suffer. At this time, the other disciples of the Qingyun sect were dumbfounded. No, was this still the back mountain of the Qingyun sect that they were familiar with? What was with these puppets? Since when did the sect have a senior brother or elder who was good at puppet refinement? Also, what the hell was this green flame fireball? Since when were puppets able to use the heavenly flame divine ability? Although they were shocked by the situation, they were not worried about Mu Chichi. What a joke, was a foundation establishment stage level 7 cultivator just for show. Let alone being able to hurt Mu Chichi, these green fireballs probably couldn't even let her warm up. At this moment, Mu Chichi had more or less understood the principles behind these puppets. In fact, the structure of these puppets was not exquisite. Rather, they could even be said to have rough craftsmanship. The only thing that these puppets were commendable about was the green flame fireballs they shot out. But in reality, the green flame fireballs were not attacks that ordinary people understood to be condensed from spiritual energy. The nature of these green flame fireballs was the effect of the explosion of pills. That's right, these puppets weren't actually shooting out normal green flame fireballs. Instead, they were shooting out special pills that were condensed from the green flame. After understanding this, Mu Chichi didn't intend to continue playing. Boring, after all this, these puppets were just pill shooters. However, just as she was about to do something, a figure hurriedly flew out of the residence on the mountaintop. It's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Are the senior brothers and sisters all right? Mu Chichi put away the Black Iron Bell and looked at Lu Yuan, who flew to her on his sword. She was stunned at first, then she said in surprise, to think that even you can break through to the foundation establishment stage. No, it doesn't seem to be the case yet. So it turns out that you have foundation establishment stage spiritual energy, but you haven't completely condensed your foundation establishment stage spiritual roots. That's strange. Why don't you go to the sect to exchange for a foundation establishment stage cultivation method and then condense your foundation establishment stage spiritual root? She clearly remembered that Lu Yuan's spiritual root aptitudes were mediocre and he was at the bottom of the pack among his peers. But now, he already had foundation establishment stage cultivation and was only one cultivation technique away from officially becoming a foundation establishment stage cultivator. The reason why she knew about Lu Yuan so well was that he was the first criminal she had personally caught. Since he was her first, it was normal for her to investigate him after his arrest. After hearing these words, the corner of Lu Yuan's mouth twitched. Was she even being polite? What did she mean by even he could break through? He was very strong, okay. Resisting the urge to refute, Lu Yuan sized up Mu Chichi. He naturally would not forget this princess of the sect who had captured him 4 years ago. In addition, his puppets had just ruthlessly attacked her, so he was more or less in the wrong. Hence, Lu Yuan could only lower his stance and politely say, "Junior brother Lu Yuan greets senior sister Mu." Replying to the senior sister, "I have been diligently cultivating these past few years and have indeed luckily reached the foundation establishment stage. I'm currently planning to deal with the matter of the cultivation technique." Mu Chichi nodded, "You do seem quite lucky. To think with your spiritual root aptitude, you were still able to break through to the foundation establishment stage. What else can it be if not luck?" Damn it, did she even have any emotional intelligence? Why did she keep saying that his spiritual root aptitudes weren't good enough? Did she really think that she was so great because she had the sect leader as her father? It was indeed quite great. To be honest, Mu Chichi's blabbermouth was not Lu Yuan's biggest headache. The thing that gave him the biggest headache was actually Mu Chichi finding out that he had reached the foundation establishment stage. This meant that his plan to develop in secret was likely to end today. Why did she, the princess of the Qinyan sect, suddenly come to the back mountain, a place where even birds didn't visit to take a shit? Also, did she have nothing better to do than come to his mountain peak? Didn't she know that she shouldn't approach someone else's mountain without prior notice? It was very impolite. One must know that Lu Yuan was worried that he would be ambushed by enemies while he was cultivating and had thus arranged many defensive measures around his mountain. These techniques included but were not limited to puppets, arrays, and mechanisms. They ensured that cultivators below level 5 of the foundation establishment stage could not easily approach him. Even if a cultivator higher than level 5 of the foundation establishment stage were to approach, he would be able to learn about the situation in advance from the activation of the defensive array and thus decide how to deal with it. When Lu Yuan saw that the one who triggered his defensive array was actually the sex princess, Mu Chichi, he immediately knew that the situation was not good. Never mind the other circumstances, he most probably couldn't hide the fact that he had broken through to the foundation establishment stage any longer. To prevent his cultivation from being exposed too early, he had used a few tricks to force the back mountain disciples near the peak away. Unfortunately, no matter how much he thought about it, Lu Yuan had never expected the arrival of Mu Chichi, the arrogant princess. Although he had prepared a lot of backup plans and it was not a big deal to reveal a little of his cultivation, he still had 1 year of his 5 years of leisure time left. Earlier, Lu Yuan really did not want to come out and meet Mu Chichi. However, after seeing Mu Chichi's unwillingness to leave, he was forced to come out. If he let her continue, the defensive measures that he had set up not long ago would be completely exposed. Therefore, Lu Yuan may seem very calm when talking to Mu Chichi, but in fact, he was cursing in his heart despite the smile on his face. When he thought about the troubles he might face in the future, the steady Lu Yuan was filled with anger. She was the princess of the sect, why was she looking for trouble with him? Go, quickly leave. They weren't even close. Although Lu Yuan thought this way, Mu Chichi clearly didn't think so. She looked at Lu Yuan with eyes full of curiosity. Chapter 27. You have successfully piqued my interest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Senior sister, please take a seat. My confinement room is rather simple and crude, I hope you won't mind. Mu Chichi didn't care about Lu Yuan's small talk at all. At this moment, she was looking around curiously and did not treat herself as an outsider at all. Seeing such an unscrupulous, tsundere, rich, and beautiful woman, Lu Yuan's brain was working crazily, thinking about how to send her away. After all, he had fiddled with quite a few things in the past 4 years. If he allowed Mu Chichi to continue staying here, he might be exposed. As a steady person, Lu Yuan didn't like the feeling of his abilities being known by others. At this moment, he was also extremely regretful. Why did he set up such a good defense system on the mountain where his confinement room was located? Previously, he had only considered the possibility of an enemy invasion and had thus constantly strengthened his defensive measures. However, he had forgotten that one's level of cultivation would determine one's formations. To be able to come up with such a defensive measure that could threaten even foundation establishment stage cultivators, the mastermind's cultivation would definitely not be weak. In addition, Lu Yuan had yet to learn any divine abilities to hide his cultivation. Therefore, when he saw Mu Chichi and the others, he knew that he couldn't hide anymore and simply flew over. Riding on a flying sword was the sign of a cultivator reaching the foundation establishment stage. Lu Yuan was using this method to tell the others that he, Celestial Master Lu, had indeed reached the foundation establishment stage. Although it was exposing himself a little, something that he had no choice but to do, he did feel quite good when he saw the surprised look on Muchichi's and the others' faces. Now that he had acted cool and had fun, Lu Yuan started to think about how to chase Muchichi away. Either way, he would not let Muchichi stay here for long. Otherwise, if she were to notice something, what if she went back and told the sect leader? Wouldn't his current safe and stable life be forcefully ended and he would have to join the dangerous world of celestial cultivation? Was that okay? It was definitely not. Moreover, today's matter also reminded Lu Yuan that he had to quickly learn some abilities that could hide his cultivation. He had no thoughts of sandbagging at all. He just wanted to be someone invisible whom no one placed importance on. As long as he could be invisible, no one could trick him. The profound meaning of stability was to reduce one's presence. Seeing that Muchichi didn't seem to want to leave, Lu Yuan said, "Senior sister, may I know why you've come to visit me?" When Muchichi heard this, she stopped her observations and looked at Lu Yuan. That's weird. Other than being good-looking, good with words, and having an outstanding temperament, there didn't seem to be anything special about junior brother Lu. Moreover, looking at his appearance, he didn't seem like the kind of person who could create mechanical puppets. Then how did he create those powerful puppets outside? This junior brother of hers must have his secrets. At the thought of this, Muchichi immediately said, "Junior brother Lu, can you tell me how you made those puppets?" Damn, why was she so direct? To think the first thing she asked was how other people's trump cards were created. She can't be thinking that he would tell her so easily, right? No way, no way. Senior sister, the puppet is just something I made in my spare time. There's nothing much to say. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Muchichi was quite displeased. Just say what I told you to say, don't beat around the bush. This attitude of not caring about the feelings of others. As expected of the daughter of the sect leader and the princess of the sect, Muchichi. Muchichi's personality was related to her life experience since she was young. As the princess of the sect, she had never lacked cultivation resources. In addition to her terrifying cultivation talent, Muchichi's life was practically smooth sailing. Thus, to put it nicely, Muchichi was extremely curious about everything. But to put it bluntly, this person was quite spoiled. She did things her way and had no respect for others. In short, she lacked the beating of society. However, thinking about it carefully, Muchichi's father was a core formation stage sect leader. She herself had reached level 7 of the foundation establishment stage at the age of 25. Whether it was her strength or background, Muchichi did seem to have the right to ignore the feelings of others. Considering the fact that his status wasn't on the same level as Muchichi's and that he really couldn't beat her, Lu Yuan could only reply, "Senior sister, to be honest, the puppets I made aren't complicated. You should be able to see this as well. It's not that I don't want to say it, but there's really nothing much to say." Muchichi thought for a moment and nodded, "Indeed, other than being able to shoot out green flame pellets, there is nothing special about your puppets. Those things can be used to deal with people below level 5 of the foundation establishment stage. However, if the enemy is above that stage, the effect will be minimal." Lu Yuan was not too surprised when he heard Muchichi reveal the essence of those puppets. Although the green flame pellets were unobvious, after a cultivator reached the foundation establishment stage, they would possess a special perception called spiritual sense. The perception range and strength of spiritual sense were related to the cultivator's talent and cultivation. In terms of talent and cultivation, Muchichi was undoubtedly among the best. For her to be able to discover the existence of the green flame pellet was not surprising. The principle behind the green flame pellet was not complicated. Rather, it was similar to the green flame pill that Lu Yuan had consumed. The difference between it and the green flame pill was that the difficulty of making the green flame pellet was very low. In essence, it was just compressing a portion of the green flame power into a pellet. The reason why Lu Yuan could refine the green flame pellet was also a coincidence. 3 years ago, while he was cultivating, he accidentally discovered that every time he used up all of his spiritual energy, his cultivation speed would be much faster than normal. If he wanted to exhaust his spiritual energy, one of the ways was to use divine abilities, and the other way was to carry out activities that required the consumption of spiritual energy. After thinking for a while, Lu Yuan decided to use his spiritual energy on pill refinement. However, not only was it time-consuming and laborious to refine ordinary pills, but the spiritual energy consumption in the process was also not large. Pill refinement consumed mental energy more instead, which undoubtedly did not meet Lu Yuan's need of exhausting all his spiritual energy. Finally, after some research, Lu Yuan developed the method to make the green flame pellet. Making the green flame pellet would not only help him consume his spiritual energy quickly, but it could also help him accumulate some trump cards. In these 4 years, Lu Yuan made a total of 300 foundation establishment stage green flame pellets and countless qi cultivation stage green flame pellets. As for the qi cultivation stage pellets that he had made previously, Lu Yuan kept a portion of them for future use, while the rest he had refined into foundation establishment stage pellets. With so many green flame pellets, Lu Yuan thus had a certain level of confidence. Those who were poor would use tactics, while those who were rich could enable firepower coverage. Lu Yuan was currently someone who could enable firepower coverage. Mu Chichi, who couldn't stand boredom, spoke again, "Junior brother Lu, do you have anything else fun other than puppets?" Upon hearing this, Lu Yuan fell silent. Don't ask. Even if she asked, he didn't have any. Perhaps she could see Lu Yuan's resistance to her. Mu Chichi frowned slightly. Ever since she was young, this was the first time she had met a fellow sect member like Lu Yuan who neither flattered nor showed any goodwill to her. One had to know that apart from her shocking cultivation and great background, Mu Chichi was also extremely beautiful. As the saying goes, a woman who is 3 years older is a great wife, while having a wife 3,000 years senior will allow one to become a celestial. A fair-skinned, rich, and beautiful woman like Mu Chichi was undoubtedly the dream partner of many Qinyan sect disciples who didn't want to work hard. If they could hook up with her, it would save them 1,000 years of hard work. Therefore, the male disciples she had met before all tried their best to please her. It was rare to see someone like Lu Yuan, who kept an obvious distance from her and did not have any intention to please her. Yet, the more Lu Yuan resisted, the more Mu Chichi was curious about him. He had successfully piqued her interest. The celestial world version of the domineering young lady, Mu Chichi, thought to herself. In fact, another reason why she was curious about Lu Yuan was that Mu Chichi was obsessed with good looks. Did they really think that Lu Yuan was chosen by Demoness Meng Rian just because he was good at sex and that his spiritual roots were outstanding? His handsome appearance was also a key reason why the Demoness Meng Rian wanted to force Lu Yuan to be her sex partner. Although Mu Chichi's personality was a little rude and unreasonable, she was also someone who favored good looks. Otherwise, she wouldn't have spoken to Lu Yuan so patiently. Seeing that Lu Yuan was so unmoved, Mu Chichi rolled her eyes and decided to use her trump card. She suddenly pushed Lu Yuan, pressing him against the wall. Then, under Lu Yuan's dumbfounded gaze, Mu Chichi reached out her right hand and pinched his chin. "Junior brother, are you sure you don't have anything fun to take out? You have to know that as long as you can make me happy, I can definitely reward you with some treasures." Shut up. Did she think that he was the kind of person who accepted something so rudely offered? As if she knew that Lu Yuan would not give in easily, Mu Chichi directly threw her storage bag on the table. In the next second, a large number of high-grade spiritual stones, special magic items, talismans, treasures, divine abilities, and cultivation techniques appeared in front of Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan looked at the pile of treasures and was shamelessly tempted. Damn, so what if she had a sect leader as her father? Even if he, the steady Lu Yuan, died of hunger and greed outside, he would not take a single spiritual stone from her. Senior sister, you don't say, I do have some good things here that I can show you. He was just saying such words, don't take it seriously. It was not that he was tempted by the spiritual stones, but really, no one could withstand the test of a pile of treasures. Either way, he couldn't. After seeing Lu Yuan's cold heart being smashed open by her spiritual stones, the smile on Muchichi's face grew even wider. Spiritual stones might not be able to solve all problems, but they could solve the creator of the problem. This was the trump card that Muchichi had been using since she was young. The evil power of money. No matter how cold a male cultivator was, as long as he saw the pile of spiritual stones, his heart would be boiling. Chapter 28. I want them all. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Muchichi followed Lu Yuan all the way to the depths of his confinement room. Generally speaking, the confinement rooms in the back mountain were not big. However, Lu Yuan seemed to be prepared to stay here for a long time. Therefore, he expanded the original confinement room to about 3 times its original size. Although this was borderline destroying the public property of the sect, in the rules of the Qinyan sect, there was indeed no rule that forbade disciples from expanding their residences. Thus, Lu Yuan had once again successfully exploited a loophole in the Qinyan sect's rules. Under Lu Yuan's lead, the two of them quickly arrived at a place called the laboratory. This was the first time Muchichi had heard of the term laboratory. Thinking about it carefully, this should be the place where Lu Yuan experimented with all sorts of divine abilities and magic items. Hence, the place was given such a name. She wanted to see if this junior brother of hers could take out something that would interest her. If it was just a puppet like the ones outside, it would not be able to move her. As a transmigrator, Lu Yuan naturally knew that if he took out something common in the celestial cultivation world, he would undoubtedly be unable to pique the interest of this fair, rich, and beautiful lady who had grown up with a golden spoon in her mouth. Therefore, he had to take out something novel that didn't exist in the cultivation world. This was the only way to pique the Qinyan sect's princess's curiosity. Lu Yuan did have such a thing. Senior sister. Please take a look. He walked to an item and removed the white cloth covering it. As the white cloth fell, a unique dot-looking steel object appeared in front of Muchichi. Although it looked like a spear, its front end was not sharp. Instead, there were many hollow steel pipes. She didn't know what this thing was used for, but there was one thing that Muchichi was sure of, and that was that she didn't sense any spiritual energy from it. It seemed to be a mechanism. Muchichi felt a little bored at the thought of this. If it was just a mechanism, Muchichi had seen many of them in the Celestial Treasure Pavilion when she was young. Junior brother, this thing of yours doesn't seem to be able to pique my interest. Senior sister, don't be anxious. Let me introduce you to the use of this mechanism called the Gatling gun. Please follow me. Following this, the two walked through a passage and came to an open space where there were many wooden stakes. Lu Yuan held the Gatling gun and said with a smile, Senior sister, watch carefully. He took out hundreds of Qi cultivation stage green flame pellets from his storage bag and loaded them into the Gatling gun. Then, he pulled the trigger. Thud, thud, thud. The sounds of mechanisms spinning and green flames appeared in the arena. The 3 wooden stakes 100 meters away were quickly shattered by the concentrated small green flame fireballs. Muchichi's mouth hung when she saw this. Wow, this mechanism seems really interesting. Give it to me, let me play too. Without waiting for Lu Yuan to reject, Muchichi snatched the Gatling gun from his hands. After Lu Yuan's simple teaching, Muchichi quickly grasped how to use the Gatling gun. The power of the green flame pellets shot out by the Gatling gun was only around level 5 of the Qi cultivation stage. In Muchichi's eyes, it was no different from a toy. That being said, she had to admit that it was really fun. For a moment, Muchichi seemed to have transformed into a Missy character in a mobile game as she started to hit the wooden stakes with her Gatling gun. After she used up all the bullets in the Gatling gun, Mu Chichi said, "Junior brother Lu, this thing of yours is indeed interesting. How about selling it to me?" "This. Senior sister, I have spent a lot of effort on this mechanism. I wonder if you..." Mu Chichi threw her storage bag to Lu Yuan and said very generously, "In there are all things I don't have a use for. Take whatever you like. I'm very happy today." They were both cultivators, so there was no need to beat around the bush. She understood his feigned reservedness and he understand her inhumane wealth. She had nothing but spiritual stones. In the face of Mu Chichi's overbearing action of throwing her storage bag at him again, Lu Yuan was no longer as bashful as he was at the beginning. He immediately started to rummage through the storage bag. Not long after, he found two things that he wanted. One was a divine ability called the aura concealment technique. After cultivating it, it could conceal one's aura. The other was called gilded sand, which was a special earth-type divine ability similar to the green flame technique. Other than these two items, what was left in the storage bag were only a few mid-grade and low-grade magic items. Lu Yuan was not clear about the use of these magic items, but he was not interested in them either. After all, things that he was not familiar with would not be able to play their role in his hands. In the end, Lu Yuan took a high-grade spiritual stone, as well as the two divine abilities, the aura concealment technique and gilded sand. "Senior sister, I want these three things." Seeing that Lu Yuan only took one high-grade spiritual stone, Mu Chichi was very surprised. This was because she had specially placed 3 high-grade spiritual stones in her storage bag. Lu Yuan could actually take them all. Even though he was tempted by these 3 spiritual stones, Lu Yuan knew that all the gifts given by fate were actually priced. He had to remember not to be greedy. Although Mu Chichi was a fair, rich, and beautiful lady, one should not think that Lu Yuan could treat her as a spendthrift. Lu Yuan had reason to believe that once he took too many things, Mu Chichi would be able to use this to control him. After all, he had taken advantage of her. The price he had asked for now was just right. With this, Mu Chichi would be unable to make any unreasonable requests. Seeing Lu Yuan's restraint, Mu Chichi's gaze toward him became even more curious. To be unmoved by 3 high-grade spiritual stones, junior brother Lu's state of mind was pretty good. Although she still wanted to play with this interesting junior brother of hers, Mu Chichi had something to do at this moment. As such, she said her farewells, "Junior brother, since you've already chosen what you want, I'll take this Gatling gun. By the way, can your Gatling gun only shoot those green flame pellets?" Lu Yuan thought for a while and said, "Not really, it can be replaced with other pellets. It's just that the mechanism will have to be adjusted. I'm not sure how effective it will be then." "I understand. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Junior brother, you should cultivate well. I'll come and play with you again after a while." After saying that, Mu Chichi immediately flew toward the center of the sect on her flying sword. Looking at the direction where Mu Chichi left, Lu Yuan could roughly guess the reason why she was willing to give him a high-grade spiritual stone for the Gatling gun. These simple mechanisms couldn't pose a threat to Foundation Establishment stage cultivators but would be of great help to Qi Cultivation stage cultivators. Mu Chichi was probably preparing to show it to the sect leader. She wanted to see if there was any way to improve the mechanism and turn it into a special weapon suitable for most Qi Cultivation stage disciples. After all, the current Gatling gun could only use Lu Yuan's green flame pellets as ammunition. Although there were others in the Qingyun sect who knew the green flame technique, Lu Yuan was the only one who knew both the green flame technique and pill refinement. If it was not improved, the Gatling gun could not be mass-produced. As for whether the mass production of the Gatling guns would have a huge impact, or even trigger an industrial revolution or something like that. Regarding this, Lu Yuan was not worried at all. Don't forget, this was a world of celestial cultivation. In this world, technology could only be considered unorthodox. The world was about celestial cultivation, not science. Although he had created a special firearm similar to the Gatling gun, Lu Yuan had no intention of developing technology in the celestial cultivation world. After all, even if he developed advanced technologies like intercontinental missiles, they might not be as useful as the flying sword of a nascent soul stage cultivator. Not to mention that there was still the apotheosis stage above the nascent soul stage and the nascent fusion stage above that. As for those big shots who had ascended, there was no need to mention them. Even a nuclear bomb might not be able to kill a celestial who had ascended. Besides, could he achieve longevity by climbing the technology tree? Lu Yuan didn't want to have anything to do with mechanical ascension. He wanted to ascend with his physical body. The reason why he had created mechanisms like the Gatling gun previously was, on the one hand, to prepare more means for himself to ensure that he would still have a certain combat power in the case of spiritual energy exhaustion. The other reason was to increase his skill proficiency. Common Skills Interface, Qingyun Technique, Level 10, Qi Cultivation Chapter 1000/1000, Sword Control Technique, Level 2. 132/2000, Exquisite Item Manipulation, Level 8. 2756/8000, Metal Wielding Technique, Level 7. 1300/7000, Wood Wielding Technique, Level 7. 952/7000, Water Wielding Technique, Level 8. 1568/8000, Fire Wielding Technique, Level 8. 1050/8000, Earth Wielding Technique, Level 8. 1269/8000. Support Skills Interface, Metaphysical Pill Refinement Technique, Level 9. 8265/9000, Weapon Refinement Technique, Level 9. 850 out of 900, to create mechanisms, puppets, and other metal objects, one needed to know how to smelt, temper, shape, and others. During this process, Lu Yuan had to use the 5 elements manipulation techniques. With this, he had been able to quickly increase his proficiency in these skills. Having more skills was never a burden. The reason why Lu Yuan worked so hard to create the puppets was to build up another support skill for the future. That's right, other than pill refinement, Lu Yuan was also prepared to learn weapon refinement. The so-called well-balanced development should not only be reflected in his attributes, but also his development direction. Only by mastering all kinds of life skills would Lu Yuan have the confidence to deal with all kinds of unexpected situations. How could others' magic items be as useful as the ones he made himself? Pill refining, weapon refining, and even the arrays and talismans. Only children had to make a choice. As an adult, Lu Yuan wanted them all. Chapter 29. Choosing a Foundation Establishment Cultivation Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The general direction of comprehensively developing all support skills such as pill refinement, weapon refinement, and talismans was a decision made by Lu Yuan after careful consideration. Learning pill refinement could ensure that he did not lack any kind of pills and greatly improve his ability to survive. Learning weapon refinement could guarantee that he would not be lacking in magic items and magic instruments that suited him, which would also greatly improve his ability to survive. By the same logic, Lu Yuan's main purpose in learning other support skills was to improve his survival capabilities. In short, who wouldn't want to wear armor that guaranteed resurrection when out and about? Even if one couldn't have an armor of resurrection, it was still good to have more pills and equipment. Most people would not have the energy to cultivate so many support skills at the same time, but it was different for Lu Yuan, who had a cheat. To him, no matter how difficult the skill was, as long as he could record it in the system interface, he would be able to cultivate it to a certain level. With such an advantage, Lu Yuan would be a fool if he didn't learn more skills. After all the talk with the general direction, it was time to talk about the problem that Lu Yuan was currently facing. Due to the incident with Mu Chichi, Lu Yuan's cultivation had been exposed in advance. That being said, he couldn't hide his cultivation any longer either. This was related to the problem of cultivation techniques. The cultivation technique that Lu Yuan was currently cultivating was the Qi cultivation chapter of the Qinyan technique. Since it was called the Qi cultivation chapter, it could naturally only be cultivated to the Qi cultivation stage. Lu Yuan had to find a way to obtain a foundation establishment stage cultivation technique before he could continue his cultivation. Although the skill interface was a good cheat, it could only advance the general skills. As for cultivation techniques like the Qinyan technique and special divine abilities like the green flame technique, he could not directly advance them with his current skills. Only when Lu Yuan found a similar type of advanced skill or learned enough of the same type of skills could he advance these special skills. This was also one of the reasons why Lu Yuan wanted to learn so many skills. He may seem to have a lot of skills now, but once he learned them to a certain extent, these skills could all be integrated. When that time came, the effect of a single skill would be even greater than the current multiple skills. Thus, Lu Yuan, who lacked a foundation establishment stage cultivation technique, had to make a trip to the scripture pavilion of Qinyan sect even without Mu Qiqi's sudden appearance today. When it was time to exchange for foundation establishment cultivation techniques, his cultivation would naturally be exposed. Besides, if he didn't reveal his foundation establishment stage cultivation, how would he receive the welfare of a foundation establishment stage disciple? Take Demonis Meng Ruyan as an example. The foundation establishment stage disciples of the Qinyan sect would receive 5 mid-grade spiritual stones and a bottle of cultivation pills every month. Secondly, when a disciple broke through to the foundation establishment stage for the first time, not only could they exchange for a corresponding advanced cultivation technique and a foundation establishment stage divine ability for free, but their authority to exchange for any foundation establishment stage techniques and divine abilities of the Qinyan sect would be unlocked. Indeed, it was just unlocking their authority. At this point, the evil Qinyan Company, Limited no longer hid their sinister intentions. It was clearly telling everyone. I, the Qinyan sect, am going to start exploiting you. On this point, the attitude of the Qinyan sect towards its disciples was the same as how the Korean entertainment companies treated their trainees in Lu Yuan's previous life. At the trainee stage, the entertainment company would spend money to train the trainees, and the trainees could also get a salary. However, after the trainees debuted, it would be time for the company to recover their costs. The status of Qi cultivation stage disciples in the Qinyan sect was similar to that of trainees in an entertainment company. The foundation establishment stage disciples were the freshly debuted stars of entertainment companies. As for the direct disciples, they were basically center stage. However, it was also because of this that the direct disciples were almost bound to Qinyan sect, and the sect would not easily let them go. From this perspective, the so-called celestial cultivation sects and large capitalist companies were actually no different. Did they think they were cultivating to become celestials? He was sorry, but they were actually going to work in a different form. On top of that, it was the kind where there was no insurance or protection from labor laws. It was because Lu Yuan understood very well that cultivating in a sect is equivalent to working in a company, that he appeared to be nonchalant and slacking off. Slacking off in the company was Lu Yuan's old practice. What? Did the sect want him to go out and vanquish demons and devils? The sect was only giving him so few spiritual stones every month. How dare it ask him to risk his life to vanquish demons and devils? Even capitalists would lament their kindness when they saw how the sect was operating. At the very least, the capitalists wouldn't ask their employees to complete their work with the determination that they might die. Compared to the life and death tasks arranged by the sect of vanquishing demons and devils, Lu Yuan felt that his current life of lazing around while being confined was pretty good. It was safe and leisurely while he still got his pay. Where could one find such a good job? If not for the fact that he was stuck due to the cultivation technique problem, Lu Yuan would have wished that no one knew that he had reached the foundation establishment stage. But there was no other way. In life, there were bound to be things that didn't go one's way. The foundation establishment stage cultivation technique was the key reason why Lu Yuan had no choice but to end his idle life. If one said that Lu Yuan had been all smiles before the confinement, he had a standard dead face while on his way to the scripture pavilion. From slacking off to going to be exploited, no one would feel good. That being said, even though Lu Yuan knew that he could no longer hide his cultivation, he did not give up on his slacking off grand plan. As for how to still slack off even after his foundation establishment stage cultivation had been exposed, Lu Yuan had some ideas. It was just that the operation was a little difficult, so he needed to plan well. In the scripture pavilion of the Qinyan sect. Senior brother, I'm here to exchange for a foundation establishment stage cultivation technique. Okay. May I ask which valley you are from? Lu Yuan from the Pharmacist Valley. After confirming that Lu Yuan had indeed reached the foundation establishment stage, the disciple guarding the scripture pavilion brought Lu Yuan in. Even though this was not his first time here, as Lu Yuan's cultivation increased, he could now sense the extraordinary nature of the scripture pavilion. There was a powerful aura hidden in the small scripture pavilion. It should be a core formation stage cultivator. In other words, the disciple in front of him was actually just a tool of the scripture pavilion. The true security of the scripture pavilion was the hidden core formation stage elder. Under the guidance of the disciple, Lu Yuan soon arrived on the second floor. Compared to the first floor, not only were there fewer books on the second floor but every book here was protected by a restriction. Not only were the books unable to be borrowed at will, but one could only memorize them when reading them and could not photocopy or bring them out. In addition, Lu Yuan could only see the names of these foundation establishment stage techniques and some brief descriptions of them. It wasn't like the sects in the celestial cultivation novels, where one could first read the contents of the divine abilities and cultivation techniques carefully before deciding whether to cultivate it or not. The disciple at the side seemed to have noticed Lu Yuan's confusion and said with a smile, "Junior brother, are you wondering why the sect doesn't let us see the specific content of the divine abilities and cultivation techniques in advance before making a decision?" Lu Yuan nodded. The disciple of the scripture pavilion said with a sigh, "To be honest, 1,000 years ago, the Qinyan sect allowed its disciples to read all the divine abilities and cultivation techniques with no restraints. No one expected that a devil spy would appear in the sect. He used his outstanding memory to memorize most of the divine abilities and cultivation techniques in the sect at that time. Then, he defected. After this incident, the sect imposed strict restrictions on all divine abilities and cultivation techniques in fear of similar situations happening. Upon hearing this, Lu Yuan was dumbfounded. Damn it, which senior was so uncultured? To think that guy did what he wanted to do. If he ate meat, he should at least leave some soup for the younger generation to drink. Originally, Lu Yuan wanted to rely on his cheat to see if he could learn some simple divine abilities in a short time and turn them into his skills. In the end, he found on the spot that this conniving path had been blocked. It would be strange if he wasn't angry. Alright, junior brother, you can start choosing the foundation establishment stage cultivation technique you want. After you've made your choice, I'll help you remove the restrictions on the cultivation technique. After that, you'll have the time for 3 incense sticks to burn to memorize it. After the time is over, no matter what the result is, you must leave. It's fine even if you don't remember all of it though, because you can borrow the same technique and divine ability multiple times. So, junior brother, you don't have to be too anxious. You must choose carefully. After all, this is related to your future path. Thank you, senior brother, Lu Yuan nodded and thanked him. You're welcome. I was just doing my duty. After the disciple of the scripture pavilion had left far away, Lu Yuan began to search for the foundation establishment stage cultivation technique he wanted. Chapter 30. Some like to be reckless while some like to be cautious. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although there were many foundation establishment stage cultivation techniques on the second floor, not many were suitable for Lu Yuan. After these few years of cultivation, Lu Yuan was no longer the beginner celestial cultivator he used to be. He had his standards for choosing an advanced cultivation technique. If Qi cultivation stage cultivators were the same as newbies in a game, the choice of an advanced skill was equivalent to the first job transition in the game. The choice of a foundation establishment stage cultivation technique was that important. This was because the most unique characteristic of a foundation establishment stage cultivation technique was that it would allow the cultivator to possess some special abilities according to the characteristics of the cultivation technique. Take the foundation establishment chapter of the Qinyan technique as an example. Cultivating this technique would strengthen the cultivator's wood attribute spiritual root. If each spiritual root was a bottle, then being in the Qi cultivation stage was equivalent to filling these bottles. To just fill the bottles with spiritual energy, it didn't matter what cultivation technique one practiced. There was not much difference. However, it was a different story when one reached the foundation establishment stage. The higher a cultivator's cultivation was, the greater the effect of the cultivation technique on a specific spiritual root. For example, the foundation establishment chapter of the Qinyan technique could allow the cultivators would attribute spiritual root to have more spiritual energy capacity. Most of the other spiritual root advancement cultivation techniques also had certain special effects. Therefore, the choice of a foundation establishment stage cultivation technique did not only depend on whether the cultivator was compatible with it but also on the direction of the cultivator's future development. This was also one of the reasons why most people only cultivated a single spiritual root. Not only was cultivating a single spiritual root the most efficient, but one's direction in the future would also be clearer, and it was easier for one to find a suitable foundation establishment stage cultivation technique. In contrast, if one cultivated multiple spiritual roots, not only was it troublesome to cultivate, but it would also be more troublesome for one to choose one's path and find a cultivation technique during the later stages. Not to mention that cultivating multiple spiritual roots had a certain requirement for one's spiritual root aptitude. Did one really think that everyone's spiritual roots were the same as Lu Yuan's, where his attributes were evenly distributed among the 5 spiritual roots? Moreover, even if they had the same spiritual roots as Lu Yuan, without a cheat, it was undoubtedly very difficult to develop multiple spiritual roots at the same time. After all, cultivating an additional spiritual root meant that one had to invest more energy and resources. Did one want to be a well-balanced expert without a cheat? Dream on. If Lu Yuan did not have the cheat, he would not have had the confidence to cultivate 5 attributed spiritual roots at the same time. Back to the main topic, Lu Yuan had currently already cultivated his 5-element spiritual roots to perfection in the Qi cultivation stage, which was also the first tier of the foundation establishment stage. Next, he only needed to choose a suitable foundation establishment stage cultivation technique and he would be able to immediately condense a foundation establishment stage spiritual root. However, it was this step that made Lu Yuan feel slightly troubled. There were simply too many choices in front of him. As a large sect that had stood for thousands of years, the Qinyan sect had countless divine abilities and cultivation techniques. Some cultivation techniques and divine abilities were the only existing copy, the kind that couldn't be found in the outside world. However, even though there were many choices, Lu Yuan's goal was still very clear. He had already planned out the characteristics of the foundation establishment stage cultivation technique he was going to choose. His foundation establishment stage cultivation technique must be able to strengthen his ability to protect his life. In terms of life-saving ability, the foundation establishment chapter of the Qinyan technique was okay, but it was still lacking. After all, if you were to really meet a strong enemy, what use would the extra bit of spiritual energy be? Could this extra bit of spiritual energy make him run faster or make his defense stronger? If he didn't have enough spiritual energy, he could just take pills. Why would he need the extra spiritual energy from the cultivation technique? Therefore, to Lu Yuan, the additional spiritual energy from the foundation establishment chapter of the Qinyan technique was useful, but not quite. What he really wanted was a cultivation technique characteristic that could either allow him to escape faster or make his vitality stronger. In short, he was looking for a cultivation technique that could strengthen his life-saving ability. After a round of searching, Lu Yuan found 3 foundation establishment stage cultivation techniques that suited him. Undying Spring Technique, Foundation Establishment Chapter. After cultivation, it can greatly increase one's vitality. After cultivation to the nascent soul stage, one can achieve rebirth through a drop of one's blood. Cultivation requirements. Foundation establishment with spiritual root, rebirth from a drop of blood was the best way for cultivators to save their lives. It was a pity that this characteristic could only be achieved after reaching the nascent soul stage. Moreover, the sect only had the core formation chapter of the Undying Spring. The crucial nascent soul chapter of the book was missing. Thus, Lu Yuan did not consider it for the time being and looked at the next technique. 9-Guard Tortoiseshell Technique, Foundation Establishment Chapter. After cultivation, your spiritual energy will be imbued with the power of the tortoiseshell armor, greatly increasing the toughness of your spiritual energy and slightly increasing the strength of your physical body. Cultivation requirements. Foundation Establishment Stage Water Spiritual Root and Metal Spiritual Root. The characteristic of this cultivation technique was to strengthen one's defense. Moreover, it was a rare cultivation technique that allowed one to cultivate 2 spiritual roots at the same time. It was undoubtedly very suitable for Lu Yuan's requirements. Then, he looked at the next cultivation technique. Breeze Mystical Scripture, Foundation Establishment Chapter. Those with the Wind spiritual root can directly cultivate this cultivation technique. Those without the Wind spiritual root can form an acquired Wind spiritual root during cultivation. After the acquired Wind spiritual root reaches the foundation establishment stage, the cultivator's speed will be greatly increased in all aspects. Note: acquired spiritual roots will consume a large amount of total spiritual root aptitude. Careful consideration is required. Cultivation requirements. Foundation Establishment Stage Wind Spiritual Root. After looking at the Breeze Mystical Scripture, Foundation Establishment Chapter, only then did Lu Yuan learn that spiritual roots could be classified as innate and acquired. Even if one did not possess some innate spiritual roots, as long as one was willing to divide a part of one's spiritual root aptitude, one could cultivate acquired spiritual roots of other attributes. With just a glance, Lu Yuan wanted this cultivation technique. He had to learn the Foundation Establishment Chapter of the Breeze Mystical Scripture. Although learning this cultivation technique was equivalent to having to cultivate the Foundation Establishment Stage Wind spiritual root, it was not a problem for him as his spiritual roots had all already reached perfection. As for the aptitudes of his other spiritual roots, Lu Yuan did not feel that it was a big deal that they would be reduced because of a new spiritual root and the even distribution of his spiritual root aptitude. Don't forget, he had previously exchanged for quite several marrow cleansing pills. In these 4 years, he had already finished all these marrow cleansing pills. Furthermore, he had used his luck talent to perfectly trigger the pill's effect of raising his spiritual root aptitude. Name: Lu Yuan, Spiritual Root Aptitude. 240 points. With his current total spiritual root aptitude, he could definitely give 40 points to the Wind spiritual root. At that time, the speed of cultivation for his Wind spiritual root would definitely not be slow. At the thought of this, Lu Yuan made his decision. Senior brother, I've made my choice. Oh. Let me see what you've chosen. When he saw that Lu Yuan had actually chosen the Breeze Mystical Scripture, Foundation Establishment Chapter, the disciple of the Scripture Pavilion was stunned. Junior brother, are you sure you want to choose this cultivation technique? Don't blame me for not reminding you. Not only is it difficult to cultivate acquired spiritual roots, but it will also take away your original spiritual root aptitude after cultivation. Junior brother, don't lose the greater for the less. Lu Yuan looked at him and said seriously, Senior brother, I've already considered everything you've said, but I still feel that this cultivation technique is very suitable for me. Seeing Lu Yuan's firm attitude, the disciple of the scripture pavilion did not say anything else. The other party had chosen his path, and he could only give a few suggestions at most. Alright, since you've made your choice, I'll remove the restriction for you. Hold on. What's wrong? Could it be that you are regretting your choice? That's not it. I just want to ask you something. I heard that when our sect's disciples reach the foundation establishment stage, apart from being able to choose a foundation establishment stage cultivation technique for free, they can also choose a foundation establishment divine ability for free. Is this true? So that's what you want to ask. Of course, it's true. To be honest, even if you didn't ask, I was prepared to tell you later. What's the matter? Have you decided what divine ability you want to learn? Lu Yuan shook his head and pointed to the 9-guard tortoiseshell technique, Foundation Establishment chapter, on the table and asked, Senior brother, may I ask if I can exchange the chance for this cultivation technique? Ah! The scripture pavilion disciple was stunned at first, then he thought for a moment and said, it should be possible, but junior brother, are you sure you want to exchange for 2 foundation establishment stage cultivation techniques? The disciple of the scripture pavilion had mixed feelings. He had been guarding the scripture pavilion for many years, and this was the first time he had seen a disciple choose 2 cultivation techniques on the first day. He had to admit that Lu Yuan was the most arrogant foundation establishment stage disciple he had ever seen. The other party had just reached the foundation establishment stage and he already wanted to cultivate 2 cultivation techniques at the same time. Wasn't he afraid of not having enough energy? Wait a minute, he had chosen the 9-guard tortoiseshell technique and the breeze mystical scripture at the same time. Of these 2 cultivation techniques, one had outstanding defensive power, while the other was excellent for escape. F***ck, was he that afraid of death? Not only did he want to run fast, but he also wanted to have high defense. Was he a cultivator or not? Where was his pride in fighting against the heavens? If he was so afraid of death, why was he still cultivating? Looking at the scripture pavilion disciple's strange gaze, Lu Yuan could roughly guess his thoughts. In response, the steady Lu Yuan laughed in disdain. That's right, he was afraid of death. Was there a problem? Don't talk to him about competing with the heavens. It's because there were too many celestial cultivators like this senior brother who went against the heavens that the heavens hated cultivators so much. He was different from the others. He was the heavens' good son, and only he understood the heavens' good intentions. Going against the heavens. He was sorry, but he would follow the will of the heavens. Besides, so what if he was afraid of death? Wouldn't celestial cultivators die? Did the other party know what it meant to die? Did he know what it meant to have one's soul destroyed? No matter how high one's cultivation was, no matter how many tricks one had, it would all be naught once one died. Only by living well would one have the chance to climb to the peak. One could only cultivate properly if one was alive, understand? If one died, one could only cultivate as a ghost. Faced with the scripture pavilion disciples' doubts, Lu Yuan said calmly, Senior brother, since there are no problems, I've decided to exchange my opportunity to get a divine ability for this technique. Seeing Lu Yuan's firm attitude, the scripture pavilion disciple kept quiet. Fine, as long as the other party was happy. He was just an emotionless unsealing tool, anyway. What did it matter to him what others chose? With this thought, the disciple's Tao heart became much more stable. The same rice can feed 100 different people. Some people like to be reckless, while some people like to be cautious. This junior brother in front of him was undoubtedly the type that liked to be cautious. Moreover, he didn't just like being cautious, he was prepared to be someone with strong defense and extreme escape abilities. The disciple of the scripture pavilion could only sigh in his heart. The world was so big. There were really all sorts of strange people. Today was really an eye-opener. Awesome. This junior brother was just too awesome.